Welcome to Rxperieince, the ASCP podcast. I am here alongside Tom Hansel, my partner in this podcast, and we are happy to have a holiday episode with our own Arnie Clayman. Now, I had ChatGPT generate an opening for this podcast, so I'm going to read that first.
Boy, am I in trouble.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special podcast dedicated to the extraordinary journey of a remarkable individual. Tonight, we gather to celebrate the life and accomplishments of the one and only Arnold Clayman. Born in Baltimore, Maryland, Arnold's journey began with humble roots, but little did he know his path would lead to incredible feats and leave an indelible mark on the world. Join us as we explore the chapters of Arnold's life from his early years to the heights of success and hear from the people who have been touched by his unique spirit. This is your life, Arnie Clayman. It's pretty good.
Good God.
That's what ChatGPT will get you.
Yeah, okay.
Most of that's true.
Disclaimer,
Arnie.
I have no idea what I'm being asked today.
Well, I think that the holiday episode is a little more lighthearted for us, for sure. But we also want to acknowledge your service to your profession. I know that you just experienced an appreciation and acknowledgement of service from the state of Maryland, or the Board of Pharmacy of Maryland, anyway, or both. Both. Yeah. So we can talk about that, and then we know that you're stepping back to some degree. So in 2024, we'll be doing a lot of things to acknowledge your service and commitment to pharmacy and ASCP. So we thought we would do a podcast right before the beginning of 2024. That's why we're here.
Well, I appreciate that.
Why don't you tell us about the Maryland thing? That was cool.
The
board thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because there was the Maryland, the Mid-Atlantic thing.
Oh, that's right. Mid-Atlantic jumped the gun a little bit.
I didn't know what you were.
That was good.
Yeah. So very, very nice at the Maryland Mid-Atlantic meeting. That meeting has been going on for 30 years. We started it 30 years ago. And the committee did a really nice little tribute, which I really appreciated. Totally unexpected. It was shocking. And now the Board of Pharmacy, apparently the governor does a citation every year for people who have been registered with the state for 30 years. So all you have to do is grow old and you get a citation. So I got that citation last month, which was very, very nice.
Was it for 30 years?
It was for 50 years.
50 years.
Did I say 30?
You did say 30. I think you're trying to. I think you're trying to
I'm trying to
hide.
make myself
Yeah,
younger.
I think you're trying to.
Damn.
I think it's pretty awesome, though.
And Arnie, usually a citation's a bad thing. Do they call it a citation? Are you sure you got
Yes.
awarded? Or
Tom, when the guy from the board called me, and he was a young gentleman, and he said the governor's issued citations every year, and I thought, oh my God, what did I do wrong? And he said, no, it's
it could be anything in Maryland.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, I love that. Like, that's not the word you use to somebody not only that's getting an acknowledgement, but especially if you were in long-term care, the last thing you want is a citation.
For real.
Yeah.
That's exactly where my head went. And
So Arnie was cited. That's good.
You got a J tag.
It was.
it was very nice. I appreciate it.
And it was well attended, right? I don't think anybody knew what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, there was like 16 people that qualified for this, and I think 6 of us showed up. I thought there'd be a room of maybe 30 people, and there was like 250 people there, and there was another 200 plus one line because it was a whole morning of CE, followed by the citation presentations. So it was pretty cool.
That is awesome. It was great. All right, well let's dig in. Like, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Kind of like the
say,
sound of
Arnie,
music. Let's
many
start at the
people
very
probably don't know who you are, but
Yeah.
Well,
You're born in Baltimore, Maryland.
yeah, we're not going to go back that far.
You got to go back at least to where pharmacy started to influence your career path.
Okay.
Right?
Well, that I can trace easily to junior high school. 2 of my uncles were pharmacists. One went on to become a doctor. The other one owned 2 pharmacies in Western Maryland, 3 pharmacies actually. And one of them he did a lot of long-term care out of. That was like a new thing. So kind of the combo shop, the back of the store was a long-term care pharmacy. He serviced about 14 facilities in Western Maryland, including 1 psychiatric hospital. And that was kind of my taste for pharmacy. And I loved chemistry. I loved medicine, but not the bloody stuff that the doctors have to deal with. So I thought, well, pharmacy, that's like perfect for me. So that was my career path. I mean, I was very focused all through college and into pharmacy school. Graduated from the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy and worked for the University of Maryland Medical Center for the next 11 years. So that was kind of like the womb for me. 14 years on that campus.
Just a question about your uncle's pharmacy that was a combo, what we would call a combo shop.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to say at the time that's the way it was? Like, I don't remember. I don't remember. I wasn't born. But
I used to like you too.
but what I would say is I would have to believe that we're not closed door long-term care pharmacies at the outset of this industry, that the combo shop was the beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. But there were pharmacies that that kind of spun off their long-term care business into closed shop pharmacies. And actually, so my uncle was friends with a lot of pharmacists in the Maryland, D.C. area that had both retail and long-term care. So I kind of got to know the industry in its infancy because of knowing these guys through my uncle. And yeah, I actually did a rotation in pharmacy school with what was Howard and Morris Institutional Pharmacy, which eventually I think became part of PharMerica. And they had invented this system for medication distribution in a nursing home called ChromaDose, where there were unit dose medications in a tray, and each time pass was color coded. So, like, let's say red was 8 a.m. and green was 12 noon, and then they had MARs that were color coded to match that, and they had a rudimentary computer system that that stuff could be entered into. And so I did my rotation with them in school, and I thought, this is really cool. So I told my uncle about it, and of course he was friends with the guys who owned that pharmacy, and he decided to implement that too. So he bought the system from them. So a lot of it was word of mouth experience that people had, and then passed it along before the industry got to be, kind of where we know it today.
Awesome. What happened next?
Yeah, Arnie, I know you did a lot in home infusion. Can you jump on that experience?
Yeah, so when I left the hospital, I kind of got tired of the hospital politics. I loved my time at the hospital. It was great training ground, and I tell students all the time, if you work in hospital pharmacy, you'll learn a little bit about everything. And all those skills you can carry forward with whatever you do. But I went from hospital pharmacy into home infusion. And I did home infusion for 4 years, back in what I call the wild, wild west days of home infusion, where, you were handed the keys to a building and said, here, go serve patients. And, oh, by the way, you have 14 TPN patients, stretch it out over 5 states. And you figure out how to service them. So that was kind of cool. It was probably one of the most rewarding things I did as a pharmacist, because we had nurses that worked for us. I had, drivers, delivery people, salespeople, and we had to cover basically 7 states was my territory, based in the middle of Maryland. So it was challenging. You had patient problems that you had to deal with all the time, family issues, dealing with family caregivers. And it was kind of exciting, because every day was another challenge that you had to figure out how to overcome. So if you have a good team of people, you can do that. So I went from home infusion. Actually, home infusion was kind of my branch into long-term care, because there was a company, which still exists today, Manor Care, which was looking to be able to do more high-tech subacute admissions into their facilities. And they didn't have an IV program. So back in the day, if you had a patient that needed hydration or needed an antibiotic, you had to ship them off to the hospital. And of course, you expose them to nosocomial infections and the trauma of having to be transferred just for something like an IV fluid. So they really wanted to develop that. So because of my background in infusion and doing home infusion, it kind of was perfect parlay into long-term care pharmacy, because it's the same concept. You're just going to people's homes instead of in nursing homes. You know, it's the same thing. So so I developed the program. I was very lucky. I hired the woman who was the director of the VNA, the Visiting Nursing Association in Maryland, who, when I was in home care, I was scared of her. She was like, oh, you know, you got to make sure you treat the patients well or she'd be on your butt. And I hired her, and she wrote the training program for nursing. I realized that there was a whole lot more to taking care of patients just by providing good service, then how to convince the administrators they could get paid for it. So how to learn what the reimbursement methodologies were. That it also gave me an opportunity, starting with Manor Care, to work with programmers to develop the computer system to actually be able to document it and not just, you know, do a Word document and do a label and keep a paper chart. So there were long-term care pharmacy systems back then, but none of them had IV capabilities. So I was very lucky in that I got to, it was kind of my dream when I was in home care. I wished that we had a computer system. And the company kind of dabbled with like a programmer, and it was kind of a waste of time. Whereas with Manor Care, they actually devoted some resources to it. A system that some of you out there might have remembered called Rescott IV, or Rescott
I even
Fusion.
remember that. I even remember that.
You remember
Yes.
Rescott?
Yeah.
It's not that old then. And yeah, and I got to work with the programmers at Rescott. It was really cool. And actually, many of the pharmacies that I worked for after that, I got to carry on that, and that became my job with some of the companies after that as well. So it was a good experience.
That's cool.
Well, as far as ASCP, I think you joined as a member in 1988, if I remember correctly.
You do.
How has ASCP evolved over that last 25, 30 years?
Well, you know, I started in long-term care, like I said, with Manor Care, and then a series of companies. I think I worked for all of them, ending up with Omnicare. And I think my success in the industry, without question, is due to my membership in ASCP. When I joined in 88, I met so many people. The first ASCP meeting that I went to was in Hilton Head. It was a mid-year meeting. And my boss at the time, who was in Illinois, he said, everybody in long-term care goes to ASCP, so you need to go to this meeting. And by the way, they're going to be talking about developing IV services for nursing homes. So perfect, I want you to go and find out what other people are doing and see where it's going. Well, when I was in home infusion, I worked with some pharmacies that serviced nursing homes because they didn't have the capability of doing IVs. And so they would be sending like a mini bag and a vial of medications, and the nurses would be mixing it. And so I saw that as an opportunity as a home infusion company to be able to go in there and actually work with those pharmacies to help supply their IVs for the nursing homes that they were servicing. So I developed these contracts with pharmacies and with hospital pharmacies because I had such a big region to cover, and developed these contract services, which then became a whole company. Unfortunately, I was not involved in that, or I would be a rich man today. But work with them to develop these kind of consignment inventories, working with an IV hood, teaching them what they needed to do to at least do like first doses and change the doses, and then I could fulfill the rest of them from my infusion pharmacy in Columbia, Maryland. And when I went to this first ASCP meeting, I went and listened to Nelson Showalter. Nelson was one of our past presidents, and he was talking about this really cool IV program that he had worked out with a home infusion company. And he's doing this presentation, and I'm looking at the forms he's showing, and I'm thinking, those are my forms. Those are the forms I developed. It's like, it was wild. And he never mentioned the name of the company. And after the presentation, I went up to him and I said, are you working with HNS? And he said, yeah. He said, we're their Northern Virginia operation now. It's like, great. That was the next place that I was going to set up before I left the company. So it's kind of, you know, the world is all, it's a small world in pharmacy. Everything comes together. So yeah, so that's how I got started with ASCP, and I found the people to be extremely welcoming. You know, I've been a member of the other big pharmacy associations and most of the state pharmacy associations. I'm a joiner, and ASCP was the one I really felt like it was family, and it's been like that. And I got more and more involved. People took me under their wings. If I had a question, I knew. I mean, you know, back then the business wasn't as developed as it is today, but I could call someone in California or in Ohio and ask a question, and they would help. So it's a great networking group. It's my family now. They're my friends. When I go to the annual meeting, yeah, I might be working as staff, but I get to see all my friends. So
like a family reunion.
Say what?
I said like a family reunion for you.
It is like a family reunion. It really is. So yeah, and you know, I just got more and more involved with ASCP, with government affairs, being on the board, all that stuff. And then, you know, 12 years ago became a staff member.
All right, finish this phrase or lyric. If I were a rich man. You're not going to do it?
I'd be on a desert island.
Oh, I thought you were going to go into something theatrical.
Nah.
A theatrical background.
Nah. No, if I was a rich man, I would volunteer for ASCP, but I would be kicking back full time.
Okay. All right.
That's honest.
All right.
The money that's keeping him, Chad.
Let me ask a zinger question.
Ooh.
Your favorite ASCP. Well, first of all, let's recognize that Arnie is the winner of every major award that this association has delivered.
I don't know how that.
Berman Award winner, our highest honor, which is our Archibald Award winner. But you were never president.
That is true.
You were never president. So who was your favorite president?
Oh my God.
President company excluded, of course.
Good Lord. Well, the only reason, you know, a lot of people wanted me to run for president, and the problem was I was VP at another company, which I won't mention the name of, and the CEO of that company said, "Yeah, you can be on the board, but you can't run for president." So that's what stopped me from doing it. Gosh, it's hard to pick a favorite president because there were so many good ones. I guess I'd have to say Lynn, because Lynn was the one who put me on the first national ASCP committee, which was the
Lynn Williams.
Lynn Williams, yeah. I was trying to think what Lynn.
Episode 2, podcast listeners.
Lynn Williams, because Lynn put me on the nominating committee, and that was the first committee that I got onto.
That's awesome.
Kind of interesting how I ended up with government affairs. Because of ASCP. So I was very active in the Maryland State Chapter, was president for many, many years, off and on. And because they always needed a go-to person for long-term care, I was tagged, "You're it." And it wasn't like I had a great interest in legislation and regulations. That wasn't something that I really had any experience with. But in Maryland, I got to be extremely involved with the Board of Pharmacy. I mean, I was on committees to write the long-term care regulations, the IV compounding regulations, the home infusion regulations, assisted living, the first assisted living regulations that Maryland had. So a lot of great opportunities to get involved in doing that kind of stuff. And then, of course, we were part of the formation of the Maryland the Maryland Pharmacy Coalition. I'm trying to remember MPC. That worked together. All the organizations worked together to work on legislative things during the legislative session, and also to work on regulatory stuff with the Board of Pharmacy. So because of that activity in the state, that was noticed at ASCP National, and then I got put on Government Affairs Committee and kind of went from there, you know. So another reason that ASCP kind of changed my life in ways that I never would have imagined, because I didn't think as a young pharmacist, oh, that's what I want to be. I wanted to be doing policy and advocacy. No, that really wasn't my thing, but it became my thing.
Well, Arnie, now that you mentioned who your favorite was, should I ask who your least favorite president was?
President company excluded.
President
of course.
included. Chad
No,
knows,
I'm just joking.
Chad knows, so I'm not going to verbalize it.
There you go.
They're all.
You don't have-
He would never have one that was the
No.
worst.
I-
It's a tie for
I do
first,
wanna
I'm
know-
sure.
Yes.
I do want to know, though, if you have any funny stories or your favorite work life memory, whether it's ASCP related or just when you were dispensing your home infusion. Can I put you on the spot and can you tell us a funny story or a situation that you were in?
Well, I can tell you one from home infusion. I think that's probably safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was sitting in the office, and our director of nursing, we were just kind of talking the end of the day, and she said, Arnie, it's so amazing to me. We get all these crazy problems every day, and we always seem to figure out a way to solve them. And I said, yeah, you're right. We just have to, because we have patients that are relying on us, and they're at home. And I get a call from a patient in State College, Pennsylvania, well, from the mother of a patient in State College, Pennsylvania, who was on TPN. And the doctor had decided to add lipids, fat solution. Well, you need a different size IV filter when you do that, because it'll filter out the fat modules, which are bigger. So I called her and I said, listen, you can wait to start the lipids until tomorrow, because it's food, and that's fine, and we'll send you the appropriate tubing so you have the right IV filter. And we get a call from her the next day, and she said, oh, don't worry, I took care of the problem. I said, how did you do that? You haven't gotten the tubing yet. She said, well, I knew the filter was a problem, so I took a pair of scissors and I cut the filter out and I taped it back together again. And of course, I'm horrified, and I tell Phyllis, our nurse, and it's like, you should not do that because it's not sterile. She said, oh, don't worry, I boiled the scissors first.
That's good.
Great. So that was funny and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. And the patient went septic.
And the patient was fine. I was a kid, and he was fine. But yeah, I was a nervous wreck.
Resilient. The kids were resilient.
Kids are resilient. Yeah,
That's right. Well, let's talk about. Tom kind of stole mine. Who the worst president was?
Uh-oh.
No, it's okay. Let's talk about just ASCP in general. Like, what's your favorite ASCP memory as a staff member?
As a staff member. Oh gosh, there's so many.
Was it singing the song from?
Oh
Hamilton?
God, that was
that
that was.
insert clip here. That's a note for Krista.
You'll be back, wait and see. Just remember ASCP. You'll be back, time will tell. You're a member and it served you well.
No, Krista, if you value your life, do not do that.
Insert clip here.
Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah, I don't know if that's my favorite memory, but I was out for one of our staff meetings. I don't remember why. I wasn't there. And when I came back, I was told that it had been decided that I was going to sing a parody of Hamilton for our meeting. Was it
It was our COVID meeting.
a COVID meeting? No, it was
2020. Yeah.
2020, right. So, yeah, it was our COVID meeting 2020. And the song You'll Be Back from Hamilton, we did our own version. Of course, Chad and
Insert clip here.
Christine wrote new lyrics, which I had to modify a lot.
We're not in the business.
Yeah,
so
either
I'm not a
I'm not a
lyricist.
composer, but they weren't going to work. So we redid them, and that was a lot of fun. And I, to this day, still get people that will comment about it, to my horror.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
if this was an official retirement year, then I would ask you for dirt on Chad. But since you're still going to have to work with him,
And now
I'll avoid
people
that.
understand where I'm like, Arnie, you're going to do your own thing. You should work part-time as long as you want to. It's exactly right.
He also knows what happens when people retire and have too much time on their hands.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah,
So,
there's no dirt.
tell me-
I know, in all honesty, and I'm not saying this just because Chad is my boss, so to speak, but he has been great for ASCP. He really has, and I'm very, very proud of everything he's done. He's really turned this organization around, and we're heading in a great direction. So I feel very, very good about being able to step back a little bit because of the fact that I think we're moving in the right direction.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's only because of people like Arnie and the team members here that we were able to turn it around. And in fact, somebody recently passed, Charlie Munger. I brought him up at a meeting today, Warren Buffett's confidant and partner. And one of the things that he was known for saying is that you can't fix a lousy company. So I thought of that as it related to ASCP because there was a time when ASCP was on the brink and it's been turned around.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is it was never lousy. It was never lousy.
No.
So you can't fix a lousy company. So it was never lousy, and everybody here has contributed to the turnaround in a profound way. And what I was going to say before when you were talking about your government, you have a reputation. First of all, you have a congressional presence. When you're on the Hill talking to people in agency or in government, you have a presence that is well received by Beltway individuals, and they are different Beltway individuals.
For real.
People in Congress are different.
Yes.
But the ASCP's reputation leans on your reputation.
Oh.
We're only who we are because of that. So I think that's a
That's
big.
a lot, but thank you.
It's a big deal because it's not easy to do. I wasn't really even sure of your history at government affairs, but it's not easy to pour through a 600-page document from CMS, figure out what's important, and figure out how to comment on it in a way and in a language that has impact and can make change. It's a very different universe from that perspective. So not only did you have to learn it and become good at it, but I mean that's a huge advantage that ASCP has always had since you've been here.
Well, thanks, but I couldn't do it without people like Jim Lewis.
Sure.
I mean, Veronica before Jim, it can go on and on.
Yeah.
But we had some really, really great people here, and it takes a team. It really does. It's a lot for any one person to keep up with. I always say it's drinking out of the fire hose every day. Even when you think it's going to be a quiet period, some other bombshell will drop. As we well know, the government drops things all the time, whether it's a bill or whether it's a regulation that comes popping out, and if you're not on top of it, and we're not 100%. We can't be. There's just so much that happens, but we try our best to make sure that we catch things and look at it through the lens of, is it affecting pharmacists in long-term care? Because nobody else is doing that except us.
That's right.
Yeah, you have to figure out the detriments or the positives that any kind of change would have for our industry. It's difficult to really forecast, those impacts that these bills make.
Absolutely.
And I think, and like we say ad nauseum around here, like this population in the United States is aging. This organization has been around for 54 years, representing the aging individual in a nursing facility. Obviously, ASCP existed probably before there was such a thing as assisted living. The acumen that our membership brings to healthcare is enormously important, and it's only becoming more important as we sort of deal with the ramifications of having so many individuals, ultimately 75 million people out of the 350 million being over the age of 65. I mean, that's enormous, especially as it relates to even today and certainly 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's what makes what ASCP does so important, and ultimately what makes what the members of ASCP do so important.
Absolutely.
And the reason it's so easy to be positive is because of, can't do it. Like, you cannot do it without what our members do. There's
Right.
just no way healthcare can survive if they don't have pharmacies and pharmacists that know how to take care of older individuals. It would collapse.
And it's so important to have a voice, whether it's nationally or on the state, local level, to be able to say, what do we do? And why are these services important? And looking out for the patients that we serve. Because, I mean, I mentioned I was on so many committees on the Board of Pharmacy, and our fellow pharmacists don't really know what in the heck other pharmacists do in other areas of pharmacy. I think it might be a little better today that, people get exposed more in school. But, I mean, they'll make some crazy regulation at the state without thinking about, well, how does that affect a home infusion pharmacy, or how does that affect a long-term care closed-door pharmacy? Sometimes the regulations don't make any sense, and unless we're there to be able to vocalize that, you can, if you're lucky, you can prevent that train from going down the wrong track. But they don't. I mean, I don't know how many times you probably have had the same experience. You tell your friends you work. Well, when I worked in home infusion, I was like, well, what do you do? What's that? Or I work in long-term care. Oh, you work in a nursing home? They just don't
They
really
smell bad.
know.
They smell bad.
Yeah,
Yeah. No one wants to go there.
right. So
That's where I work.
it's it's important to have that voice. It really is. And I think what ASCP always has tried to do, as long as I've been a member, and that's 30 some years, is being able to give our members the information they need to be able to have a voice and make sure that it's factually based. Give them the ammunition they need to be able to enter into a conversation about it. And, that's what we try to do. And I think our members are great. They're interactive. They speak up for themselves for the most part. I think we have a very energized group of pharmacists, and they might be a small percentage of the overall pharmacists that work in this country, but I feel that they really care about what they do, or they wouldn't be doing this.
I mean, they punch higher than their weight, just like ASCP does.
Right.
ASCP represents that.
Yeah.
For them.
Absolutely.
Well, let's pivot back to Arnie, the person, who again we've touched on his theatrics and theater background, but talk about your family, because you have a very awesome family. Your niece, one of which is actually a Broadway actress.
Yes.
So talk about that as it relates to your career.
As it relates to my career. So when I worked at the hospital, they would call me the theater pharmacist, the singing pharmacist.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. See, I didn't know that. That's
because
good.
I became like I worked for most of my time at the hospital. I worked on the third floor satellite, and anyone in the hospital that had a kid that wanted to get into theater, or somebody, an adult, a member who wanted to do something, they go talk to Arnie on the third floor pharmacy satellite.
The acoustics were great on
He
the
could-
satellite pharmacy on the third floor.
Well, it was, because it was in a former bathroom, so it was all tiled.
Oh my
It was
God,
like-
singing in the shower.
It was like an echo chamber. I never sang in the pharmacy, but people would be steered to me to place them, and I got people to volunteer. I was real involved in a community theater group from the time I got out of pharmacy school. I actually was in a singing group on the campus, the UMA campus, because we had somebody from dental school, medical school. We had all these different disciplines together, and then a group of us auditioned for a show, The Music Man, and we had sung some barbershop music together, and the director cast us immediately. I mean, normally you go through callbacks and all that. It was just like, you guys, here's when the rehearsal starts. So I got a bunch of them roped in, and that's how I got involved in this theater group, which my sister was one of the founders of that group. And I was, of course, I got sucked into that, and so I was vice president for production for 11 years for that group, and did lots of different things for them. And yeah, so now my niece has taken up the flag, so to speak, and she is in a Broadway show right now. She's in A Beautiful Noise, the Neil Diamond story in New York, on Broadway. And she's actually going to be leaving the beginning of December, and she's going to a brand new show, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is yet because it hasn't been announced by the production, but it's going to start in February. So I'm very excited for her. She's really done a great job.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you more prideful and happy than when you take a picture at a Broadway show that your niece is in, which we all would be. Like, it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm living my artsy part of my life vicariously now, since I've devoted myself to pharmacy and given up all the acting stuff and producing.
But what's really fun is at our annual meeting in Denver, Arnie and his niece are going to do an act at the Berman Awards.
Oh, yeah. Something else I didn't know.
Nice.
I guess if I can arrange for that, I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Won't be Hamilton. We'll let you pick this time.
Oh, okay, great. A little number from Fiddler on the Roof, or
That's where I was going with Rich Man, but you didn't follow.
I know. That's not me.
That's not your part.
No,
Okay.
I'm more like Laser Wolf the Butcher. I played that part.
There you go. Well, Tom, any last thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, Arnie, you certainly don't need any endorsement from me. But I could tell you that my entire career, I've been in the audience and listened to you speak. You know, your knowledge is second to none. You always bring in relevant, up-to-date information. And at the end of the day, your demeanor is nothing but fun and personable and respectful. So I personally just want to tell you, I can't speak for everyone, but I believe in this case, I certainly can. Anyone that knows you and has been in the audience listening to you and got to know you as a professional, we admire you and we want to thank you for everything you've done in this industry and just for the person that you are today.
Tom, thank you. That's very, very kind. I really appreciate that.
That's awesome. Well said, Tom. And I can't add to that. That was well said. But if there was a higher award at ASCP, I'm sure we would nominate and you would win whatever award that would be.
Well, thanks.
Your dedication to the profession and ultimately to ASCP is beyond reproach. It's amazing.
Well,
and we thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've done it out of love because if I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. That's kind of me.
There's a lot of lessons in there, kids. All right. Well, happy holidays, everybody. This has been the holiday show for Rxperieince, the podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you.